It was a sunny afternoon, and a smell of grilled ribs and laughter filled the air as the Johnson family hosted their neighborhood barbecue. Friends and family gathered in their backyard, enjoying the warm sense of community. But as the cheerful scene unfolded, one neighbor wasn't so pleased. Annoyed by the noise and suspicious of the gathering, she picked up the phone and called the police, reporting a rowdy crowd causing a disturbance. What she didn't know was that the man at the grill, flipping burgers and cracking jokes with his kids, was no ordinary host. Mr. Johnson wasn't just a proud father and neighbor, he was a respected police captain. When the patrol car pulled up and the officers stepped out, all eyes turned to the gate. What happened next left the neighborhood buzzing with a lesson no one would forget. The Johnson family noticed the flashing lights before the officers even stepped out of the car. Conversations paused, and kids huddled closer to their parents, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Mr. Johnson, with a calm but curious expression, set down his spatula and walked toward the gate, his wife watching from the patio with a worried look. The officers approached, professional but slightly uneasy, as they scanned the scene of smiling faces and barbecue trays. One of them addressed Mr. Johnson. "We received a complaint about a disturbance." Meanwhile, from behind her curtains, the neighbor watched intently, expecting her concerns to be validated. What she didn't see was the quiet confidence in Mr. Johnson's demeanor as he introduced himself. The officer's face changed subtly, a flicker of recognition crossing his expression. The air grew heavy with anticipation as the family and neighbors waited to see what would happen next. Mr. Johnson remained calm, his hands resting at his sides, as he addressed the officers. "Captain David Johnson, Precinct 12, he said evenly, his tone firm yet respectful. The officer blinked in surprise, glancing at his partner before nodding. "Captain, we didn't realize." Before they could finish, a voice from the patio broke the moment. "Dad, is everything okay?" It was David's teenage son, concern written all over his face. The question lingered in the air, not just for the family, but for the neighbors who had quietly gathered to watch. From her window, the caller still couldn't piece together why the officers looked hesitant now, their authoritative posture softening. Inside, she wrestled with a gnawing feeling that perhaps she had jumped to conclusions. But down at the gate, the conversation had only begun. David's calm exterior masked the quiet storm brewing within, a man forced to confront the realities of bias, even in his own neighborhood. The officers exchanged uneasy glances before one of them cleared his throat. "We were responding to a call from a concerned neighbor about noise and possible disturbance." "Standard protocol," he explained. David gave a slow nod, his expression unreadable, but the tension in his shoulders told another story. Meanwhile, the kids at the barbecue whispered among themselves, their laughter replaced by uneasy silence. David's wife stepped forward, her voice steady but edged with frustration. "So is this what happens when we host a family barbecue?" she asked, her eyes meeting the officers. The officers shifted uncomfortably, knowing the gathering was far from anything resembling a disturbance. One officer took a step back, addressing the small crowd. "Sorry to interrupt your afternoon. It looks like everything here is fine." But before they could leave, David spoke up, his voice cutting through the awkward silence. "Not so fast," he said, his gaze fixed on the officers. Everyone froze, unsure of what would come next. Pick up from where the last part ended, and right introducing a second plot twist or escalating the main conflict. This section should raise the stakes, surprise the audience, and drive the story toward its climax. Keep building suspense without resolving the main plot, and maintain SEO with relevant keywords. Ensure the narrative flows seamlessly from the previous sections. Also, do not make any headings. Only write story in paragraphs. Also make the script human-centric and don't give feel of AI generated. Also don't create violated content, which can affect YouTube policy. David stepped closer to the officers, his steady voice carrying the weight of his words. Before you go, I'd like to know something. Did you check the validity of the complaint before arriving? The question hung in the air, cutting through the murmurs of the gathering. The officers hesitated, clearly caught off guard. From her window, the neighbor watching began to feel a deep unease. She had expected a disruption, not this level of scrutiny. As David continued, his tone remained calm but firm. You see, I spent my career trying to build trust between law enforcement and the community. But how do I explain this to my kids? That a barbecue in their own backyard warranted a visit from the police. The officers stood silently, unable to argue with the truth in his words. Just then, a voice spoke up from the crowd. It was the neighbor, stepping out of her house, visibly uncomfortable. I didn't mean for this to happen, she stammered, her face pale. David turned to face her, his expression unreadable. Perhaps this is a moment for us all to learn something, he said. And with that, the tension dissolved, replaced by a profound sense of reflection. What began as a confrontation ended with a conversation, one that left the entire neighborhood questioning how easily assumptions can spiral into actions. The barbecue resumed, but the day was far from ordinary. A reminder that sometimes the biggest lessons come from the most unexpected places. Continue from where the climax left off and write 150 words wrapping up the story. This part should provide a satisfying resolution, answer any remaining questions, and conclude subplots. Leave the audience with key takeaways or reflections, making the ending memorable and engaging. Naturally, include keywords to keep the SEO optimization strong. End the story now in natural way, also do not make any headings. Only write story in paragraphs. Also keep the wording simple and natural tone. Also make the script human-centric and don't give feel of AI generated. Also don't create violated content, which can affect YouTube policy.